All right. We are live, broadcasting from the LP Mises Caucus Facebook page, the Twitter, the YouTube, my profile, and into the Facebook group. So, hello, Mises Caucus out there watching. Thank you guys for joining. While we build up, I will get out of the way some of the shameless plugs, the obligatory plugs. We got a bunch of new designs up on MisesMerch.com. We've got the Hoppa doing what must be done since 2017 design. We've got the Ron Paul Be Brave design. We have the Print Guns Not Money design. We have the Mises Caucus Revolution design. So, it's convention season. You want to show your flair, man. You want to show up to these conventions. You want to show your flair. And it also helps us with mobilizing our delegates, running the whole operation, helping local level candidates for the decentralization strategy. So MisesMerch.com, get your Mises merch, and show out at convention, and you can be like this, flexing on them. And then anybody who is not a subscriber on YouTube, I know many of you are on our social media right now. We're just under 5,000 subscribers on YouTube. So if you can head on over to YouTube, subscribe there, get us over that 5,000 or 6,000 mark, that'd be greatly appreciated. And then the final shameless plug to get us started is to donate to Mises PAC. So if you go to lpmisescaucus.com/PAC, we're in the middle of a fundraiser now to fund our delegate mobilization efforts. We have a huge nationwide mobilization effort to get to Reno for the Reno reset. And, we have recently, in the past week, raised $33,000 for that effort. Really proud of that. Can't believe that it happened this fast. And we have a minimum goal of $40,000, and it looks like we're going to smash through that as well. So go to lpmisescaucus.com/donate, become a recurring donor, and help us build on our $17,000 a month. And so we can show out in Reno, have a good time, and get that reset going. So with all that obligatory plugs out of the way, we got almost 70 people live now. So I guess we'll get started. So we got here with us Brody Elwood, Jason Brand, Dan Garrity, all Mises Caucus members. Brody is a Mises organizer. We've also got Charlie Larkin here. I'm really happy that Charlie's with us. Charlie is one of the state executive committee members that was booted off of the state board in Massachusetts for daring to call for new elections. So, we're going to be getting into it with you guys. The name of the live stream says everything. What's going on in Massachusetts? I know there's a lot of chatter out there on social media and all that stuff. So we're here to get to the bottom of it and give you guys all the details. Gentlemen, how are you guys doing tonight?
Pretty good. It's actually warmer today than it has been in the rest of the week. So I'm happy.
Yeah, it was nice out today.
Yeah.
It's like 40 something here. Not bad.
Not Florida.
No. But that's good this time of year.
Where I want to start with things is especially with Brody, Jason, and Dan here, is before we kind of get into the conflict, kind of get into what happened exactly with the purge that just took place. I want to talk about like what the trajectory of the Mises Caucus has been. What has the experience of the Mises Caucus been in Massachusetts? What led up to this conflict? Because that's the context and the backstory that's going to set the table for what ultimately happened here. So let's start from the beginning. Brody?
So Jason and I are kind of the original organizers. I know there were some before us. I think Eric Sawyer, who is in New Hampshire now, technically started it, but we really got started, Jason and I, in I think it was about a year ago, January, where we got our list together. We started contacting people, and we had our first meeting. It's actually in Jason's house. And we had about 10, 12 guys there. It was a great meeting. It was we were both asked whether or not we're state party representatives, because we were the first libertarians in the state to have reached out to anybody. So we had our meetups. I emphasize having in-person meetups, because I see a lot of issues with only meeting people through Zoom boxes or on Twitter or whatnot. I think it's good to meet people in person and break bread with people. I'm old school like that. And so we did that. That's we've had about regular monthly meetings or near to monthly meetings, various locations around the state, and have been building up our kind of following. there, people involved, getting them coordinated. Yeah, so that we started about January of last year, which was actually pretty close to our convention last year, which was in March. I think maybe I'll let Jason talk a little bit about his perspective on that. But yeah, we weren't, we did not have a lot of time to prepare for our state convention because we got started a little later than we would have liked.
Yeah, we had about 10 of the 38, I believe, in attendance that were explicitly Mises at the state convention. So not to get too much into the nitty gritty, but they elected a slate, none of whom were on our we didn't have anyone that was running at that time, but we showed up in those small numbers and nevertheless were able to pass on the spot an anti-mandate resolution, something they hadn't even considered, and something that they had some other resolutions on the table, but Mises, one of us, a Mises guy, Thomas Edlin, on the spot, drafted and presented a anti-mandate resolution, and it passed. Interestingly, the sole no votes, as I recall, were the people that voted to oust us a week ago. So we got that done, and then I think Brody can elaborate how we went on from there and grew our numbers.
Yeah, the same time to this, about the convention time in last March, I realized that there wasn't a local affiliate for me to go to. I had read, if you go on the Massachusetts Libertarian Party Wikipedia page or on Lpedia, there's actually history of a Libertarian Party of Watertown, which I live in Watertown, Massachusetts, and I was like, wait a second, that doesn't exist anymore. Why doesn't it? And I kind of resolved that we should have local affiliates again. I was invited to attend the Greater Boston Libertarian Party, who is headed by Jeremy, is it Thompson? Is his last name? Jeremy Thompson, who was friendly with us at the time. I knew he wasn't really ideologically aligned with me in most respects, but he's friendly enough and invited me to his affiliate, but I declined because I felt like this area needed its own affiliate, and so I went forward with forming the Middlesex affiliate. And so around the same time, January, February, March timeframe, I started letting people that I had connected with, like Jason, who lives in the Middlesex County as well, and other people that we had networked with that both in and outside the caucus that we were planning on doing this, and kind of slowly got rolling. I'm super new to the party formally. Like I joined like late 2019, and I've only been really involved since the COVID stuff has started. So I'm like new to like all those lingo we use, like bylaws, committees, so on and so forth. So I had no idea what was going on. So I reached out to the party to ask for help. They weren't they weren't super helpful. I don't know if that was out of malice or just they didn't know what to do with people who wanted to form affiliates. So I kind of treaded our own trail there, and we got a meeting with one of the state committee members and with, or actually two of them, with Jeremy and Michael, to kind of discuss how we would set up something like a Middlesex affiliate. And they were friendly with us. They were on good terms with us at that point in time. We let them know what we were doing and why we wanted to do it. It's really like I really believe in the decentralized aspect, the decentralized plank of the caucus platform, and part of that is forming local affiliates, right? Like the problems we deal with in my town or in the county here is different than they deal with in downtown Boston, even though we're like a mile apart. Just different cultures, different things to deal with, and so I felt like it was appropriate to form our own local affiliate. So that brings us to about middle of about summer of last year. Jason was along with me on this, and yeah, it was just I felt like it was a good strategy to get people involved, and we've had good success on that end.
So give me like what are the what's the good news of the Mises Caucus in Massachusetts so far? So how many counties have you guys built to this point? I know there was a pretty successful city council campaign that happened that you guys were involved in. Why don't you give me some of the good news of the caucus in the state?
Sure. Just to so we don't miss, we have an elected libertarian down on a school committee who's a Mises member. That might have predated our involvement in getting things going, but he's an active Mises member in the South Shore affiliate. One of only 3 elected libertarians in the whole state at this point. So that's a little bit in the past, but that's good that he's aligned with us and is a member. Yeah, Brody can elaborate on the other stuff. We had a mayoral candidate, Andrew Cordio, in Fitchburg, and although he didn't win, he was on a live debate stage with the established mayor, who's not the cleanest in terms of he's just more of a establishment status quo politician, and we supported him. He got good numbers. I don't know the exact numbers, but we did well without a lot of money on his campaign.
And was the party like helpful? Did the party help promote him or get involved with resources or anything like that?
I think Charlie might be able to speak on that because he did make good faith efforts, and it went nowhere.
Charlie,
Yes.
you're still.
I'm sorry,
Go for it,
my
Charlie.
connection is a little weak, so I didn't quite catch everything.
We were talking about Andrew's campaign and the efforts that you tried to make to involve the state committee in his campaign.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I found out. I didn't even know it was going on until August or September, and I was, geez, why didn't we hear about this? And I forwarded something to the state LP Slack, which I very rarely used because it kept crashing my computer and doing all kinds of other terrible things. And it seemed to be received to not a whole heck of a lot of enthusiasm, which I found a little disheartening and kind of disturbing. It has been, I found out a little later on, it has been the custom of the state committee to not get overly involved in campaigns. And while I understand the idea of neutrality, you don't want to show too much favoritism or anything like that. At the same time, if you're in the final campaign and you're the final candidate, you should be helping them if at all possible.
So Charlie, what was? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And when I found out that Andrew was having an election night celebration, I said, well, I'm going to go anyway because I think I should. And I went and introduced myself, and I said, on behalf of the state committee, I'm sorry for not giving you any support. And I was not able to due to some other things I had going on at the time. I had some occurrences going on in my family and some other things. But I would have still tried to spare an afternoon, and I didn't really even know how to contact anybody or anything. And I was, geez, I'd like to do something. And I just did what I could, and I was still very happy to see that Andrew got about 28% of the vote. I think that's absolutely incredible. It also sent a very clear message to Mayor DiNatale that you're not as welcomed as you thought, and you're not going to just walk into office. And I think that's a good thing. So even though we didn't win, we won.
So Charlie, why wouldn't they
that.
give? Oh, sorry, I think your connection's screwing up and I'm talking past you. I apologize. But what was the tenor of like the communication about the campaign? Like, why weren't they interested in helping, or was there a
I've
debate
never really
about
been
that?
able to get a good answer on that. I've never really been able to get a good answer on that, but I can tell you that I got screamed at for not telling anybody after I told people. And I was threatened with expulsion from the state committee over it. And I say, wait a minute. This is not okay. I told you. And oh, gee, we lost the email or we lost a message in Slack or some other thing. Come on, really? I'm the guy who can barely turn a computer on, and half of you work in MIS for a living, and you're going to tell me you lost stuff?
Yeah. All right. So before we kind of move on and get to the beginning of the conflict, I just want to hear from Dan. I haven't heard from you yet. What's your experience in Massachusetts been like as a Mises member?
Yeah, so I got involved with these guys, I would say probably late summer, somewhere around there. And they contacted me and wanted me to start organizing the Pioneer Valley affiliate. So that encompasses Franklin, Hampden, and Hampshire counties in Massachusetts. So they, sent me over the list of maybe 7 or 8 people that we had out from this way, and I got everybody. I got in contact with everybody. So far, we've had 2 official meetings. Our formation meeting is going to be on Saturday. So after that, we're gonna elect chair, vice chair, all of that good stuff there. But yeah, I've been here for a little bit, seeing what's going on, and since I got here, I realized that the current sitting state committee, they just didn't seem to have the same kind of ideology that any of the Mises members do here. They're these kind of really odd leftist type libertarians, or if you want to even call them that, which I really don't think so. But they haven't. Nobody's reached out from the state committee other than Charlie. Charlie's been great in helping me get the Pioneer Valley affiliate set up and good to go. But I haven't heard a word from anyone else in terms of any type of support. They really didn't seem like they were interested at all in helping get the affiliate going. And so, we're making it happen either way. We're going to get that done, form up on Saturday, and, I'm happy to be here and doing what we can to help spread the liberty movement and insert our ideology into the public discourse out in the Pioneer Valley.
Hell yeah, man. All right, so moving along, so we're the convention happens last year, things start exploding, we're starting to build counties, we're growing the party, we're trying to help candidates. Where in the line of all of this good stuff that anybody who is in the party and interested in the party should see is objectively good work, where does this start to turn into conflict, and how did it turn into what we're seeing right now?
Well, something that's hard to communicate is that throughout all this time, we really didn't declare that we were like affiliated with the caucus at all, or that we caucused with each other, because we knew immediately that we'd have a target on our backs if we did so. Because in these meetings, I've attended the state committee public meetings since May or June sometime, and at the end of every meeting, they would sit there and discuss about how they can prevent a takeover, how there's a certain group of Republican insurgents who are coming to take over the good name of the Libertarian Party, and so on and so forth. So by and large, we just put our noses to the ground and did the work where we could without being too vocal about it and being too like, oh hey, I'm explicitly affiliated with Mises, because at the end of the day, it didn't really matter. Like, I joined the party because of Mises, because I believe in the Mises platform, and that's the type of libertarian I am. But I'm here to do work, and I'm here to learn how to work with the party and bring forward or advance the cause of liberty using the Libertarian Party. So like that undercurrent was always there, where like you kind of had to be quiet. This all kind of came to a head about end of summer last year, where we got a little bit. We wanted to start recruiting. One of our other guys, who's unfortunately moved, wanted to start recruiting using our Twitter. And Twitter is a very interesting place, and I don't do Twitter, so I can't really comment too much on it. But there were several controversial tweets, not unlike things New Hampshire and Kentucky have been tweeting out. So they're very principled in my opinion, but somewhat controversial, which got us in hot water with the leadership of the state. And that's where the whole Masha thing came about. Masha is involved in helping us promote on Twitter. She's very active with us and is supportive of us, and she's a a great member to have, because she is connected to the liberty movement at large and really points people our way. So really appreciate her. But in September, This all came to a head when I don't remember the exact details of the accusations against her, but yeah, I
She
agree. Carolyn,
all she
Twitter is
did
not real life.
all she did was retweet somebody. She retweeted Jeremy Kaufman, and that
Was
was
that
And
it?
that
Okay, yeah.
was that was my understanding. Now, let me just back up one second. I just want to clarify something real quick. Are you telling me that Ashley Shade, who is the chair of the Massachusetts Party, as well as the chair of Outright Libertarians, was leading the and fostering an environment of Massachusetts that was keeping Mises members in the closet? Is that what I'm hearing?
I would say yes. I've heard other members of the state
That is
committee
hilariously ironic.
indicate to me that yes, that it was. I don't want to put words in Ashley's mouth, but from my understanding, is that she wanted, or whatever the group around Ashley and her friends, they wanted to keep right leaning Ron Paul type libertarians out. And as you know, all of us, you won't meet a Mises Caucus member that does not deeply respect Ron Paul. So yes, she very much did foster an environment that made us feel like we had to just kind of keep our noses to the ground and keep out of trouble, but still do the work that we needed to do.
Gotcha. Okay, so then where did this so you got in hot water over Masha's tweet, and then what happened from there? Because I think the aftermath of that is where this really started to escalate and speed up and everything. So kind of walk us through what happened as a response to that and how that is directly correlated to what happened. Because I think there's a lot of people out there who do know about this. All they know is there was a bunch of people who were just kicked out of Massachusetts. And they seem to think that that happened in a vacuum by itself, and that's not true. It's all connected to this whole kind of process.
Yeah, I don't know, Jason, you want to speak on that?
Well, yeah, the first measure they took, which was very suspect, is as they saw these affiliates forming up, even before Dan started his efforts. The Middlesex affiliate was right and ready to formalize and become an actual affiliate. They came down with this restrictive bylaw that they were voting on that would make affiliate formation just that much harder. In a state that's had virtually no affiliates, maybe Charlie can speak to this, but we formed more affiliates in the last year, 3 verging on 4 now, than had been around or formed for many years. So out of nowhere, they surreptitiously, they got this bylaw going that had the net effect of requiring us to be subordinate rather than autonomous to the state committee. And it had measures like sending every one of our minutes to our meeting. Prior to formation, we had to send the minutes of our formation meetings to the state committee to, I don't know what, to approve. After formation, there were other restrictive measures that we'd have to, I'm blanking on what they were, but the net effect was that they were basically, it was a veiled attempt to discourage affiliate formation, which is really the bread and butter of getting the Libertarian Party going. We have to have affiliates spread throughout the state. So that sort of sums up what they did there. But yes, then along came this, as Brody calls it, a code of compliance, but they were calling it blatantly a code of conduct. And
So well, let's back up a little bit before we get into that. So Masha did the tweet and retweeting Jeremy Kaufman.
Yep.
They kicked her out, right? They kicked her.
Yes.
So that's where things really started to get heated up, right? Like they kicked her out, and my understanding is that they started gunning for another person. I forget who it was, but they wanted to kick out a second person for similar reasons.
That's
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that second person they wanted to kick out was a member David, because he had made. I don't really remember off the top of my head what the comment was, but was it something directed at Jeremy Thompson or in some sort, or something that Jeremy really took offense to that he had said, and he wanted to
something. Basically,
I don't remember off the top of my head what it was.
That might have been the exception.
But
of the
he
story.
was really upset over
Yeah.
that and wanted to have him removed.
Sure. And then they started
So-
to create the framework to actually have this code in place where they could do such a thing. You know.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
So let's sit there for a minute. They kicked out Masha. They tried to kick out another one. Charlie, at this point in time, you're on the board. You're involved in these conversations. What was going on behind the scenes as far as like the conversations around kicking these people out? You know, was this everybody was on the same page? Was there like consternation around all this? Like what was going on behind the scenes as this was unfolding?
Well, most of the behind the scenes was public meeting, because I very rarely used the Slack because again, my computer hates almost everything. So it especially dislikes Slack for whatever reason. I didn't see anything, but from what I had been able to gather, there was much rending of garments and gnashing of teeth, to quote a passage from somewhere in the New Testament, and I'm reading the relayed reports to me, and I'm thinking, yes, some of this was maybe not particularly well considered and frankly quite unwise, but what I was seeing was horrific overreaction, I thought. And rather than maybe sit down and talk with somebody and say, you know, maybe we should try this instead, or, you know, here is some potential harm that you're doing. Instead, it's start swinging the sledgehammer. Sledgehammers do one thing, and that's take stuff apart. And that's really not a good idea, especially if you're on a committee that has been charged with building an organization. And myself and Janelle Holmes fought that type of mentality simply because we thought that the approach to handling these things was terrible, for want of a better way of putting it. For the record, although I did not agree with how Masha said what she said, I agreed with the point she was going at. And I don't even remember what the whole thing was now. And the other fellow who stepped on Jeremy, or as Jeremy thought he stepped on him, I barely even remember that one. I'm looking at all of this. I'm thinking, this is all silly. We have other things to do, like figure out how to get affiliates started and identify candidates for statewide offices, and maybe start finding some people to run for state rep and state senator, and maybe governor, or maybe governor's council, which is the for people outside of Massachusetts, that's a group of 8 representatives from around the state who approve things like judges and paroles and commutations and that type of thing that are appointed by the governor. But no, we weren't doing that, and we weren't doing a lot of other things that myself and a few other people thought, you know, we really should be doing. It was terribly unproductive in many respects.
Yeah,
And it's made me to be very honest, it has made me sufficiently soured on things that, while I will continue to be active in my county affiliate and do things where I can, I have very little appetite for continuing on anything state or national level at this point. And if this is all we're going to get, then I have other things that I can do, and what I want to do with the LP, I can find better ways to use my time.
you know, you would think that maybe they might have a little bit of effort towards the fact that, like, in the major cities, the government is seizing control of the veins of the people, and like forcing mandates on them.
Yes,
you know,
I mean on January 15th, actually, there's going to be a very large rally in Boston. They just implemented a vaccination mandate for going to restaurants and anything else. And one of my friends who's in the Republican Party, me know about this, and I said, okay, good, thanks. I'll share this. We want support. I put it up in a couple of LP groups, and it was immediately decried still as anti-vaxxers and wishers of death. And wait a minute, aren't we supposed to be against the government telling us what to do and how to do it?
You would imagine so in the Libertarian Party, but not
So
in
just-
Massachusetts.
So just to clarify, the idea of putting out messaging about the mandates was actually talked about in the state board in Massachusetts, and it was shot down as anti-vax kook stuff.
In a couple of incidents, from what I've been able to tell, yes, it was. And it
Wow.
was.
Their messaging
Wow.
on COVID has been completely
Non-existent.
non-existent, yeah, over the last year and a half.
Okay.
And
All right.
this
So
was
that's go ahead.
sorry, no, this was kind of another impetus behind forming local affiliates. Is we could have our messaging reflect what the members actually cared about, or what people on the ground actually cared about. And like, you talk to anybody here, any libertarian here, it's COVID everything, because that's the issue of today. And I saw that Tom Edlem is in the chat here. Tom Edlem is the chair of South Shore Libertarian Party. He's been drafting up beautiful anti-mandate materials, pamphlets, websites, you name it, that type of
Yep.
thing. Because he feels really passionate about that, and he's a gifted author and has put out materials on that. But that's things he's been able to do as an officer of the South Shore Libertarian Party, and he has the full support of his party behind him in these efforts. And he's shared his materials with us here in Middlesex, and we'll run with him as well. But the state party is completely against that. Like we posted, Tom posted his materials in the state Slack, and what did the state party do in response? They posted a blog post that basically is a Pfizer, an advertisement for the Pfizer vaccines. I mean, you should go look this thing up. I don't have the link on hand, but
Oh my God, it's awful.
it's pretty much an advertisement by Pfizer. It's
I think
all
you
the
can
vaccines
find
are
it.
great. They're the
Yeah.
safest vaccines that have ever been produced ever. And I'm like, okay, I get that people
It's
feel
awful.
strongly about the vaccines, but really, should the Libertarian Party even care about the nature of the vaccines themselves? No, we should care about the fact that the government wants to shove them down our throats, right? And there was no real passionate talking about that. And Tom Edlem is somebody who carries that passion, and very intelligently so. And he brought that to the state committee, or members of the state committee, in our internal channels, and they totally shot it down, and even kind of tried to counteract him with a blog post.
Yeah, I think you can find the blog post if you were to go to the state site. I think it's on there. I think they still have it up.
They do, yep.
So we're kind of getting some insight on where these quote unquote libertarians who were on the board of Massachusetts were. So, but to kind of go back to the timeline here, Masha makes the tweet. They kick Masha out. They go to gun for another person. They don't get that. And then that actually resulted in a vacancy, right? Like there was somebody who dropped off the board as a result of how this is becoming an authoritarian regime, essentially, right?
Yes, I'd like to, if I may, I'd like to speak to that.
Absolutely.
Daniel Reek, who is our IT supervisor or IT director. I forget exactly how it was styled. They who was a wonderful man and very, very dedicated to libertarianism. He did not like how Masha was treated at all. He cast his vote and resigned from the party, and not resigned from the party, excuse me, but resigned from the executive committee. He is still a member of the party, as far as I know. And he was absolutely. I did not see the post directly again because it was all in Slack, but from what I have been informed, he was absolutely disgusted.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of that going on.
So it did lead to a resignation. That leads to another point that I mean, there's so much going on. We brushed over this. So there's the code of conduct that was proposed, and also they I like to say they anointed Terry DeSisto onto the state committee. She did not formally replace Daniel Reek.
Real quick,
sorry.
before you get into that, who is Tara DeSisto?
Oh yeah, sorry. Tara DeSisto is the director of
Development
something at
director.
National
Development
Director. Yeah, so
Paid
she
staffer of
handles.
National.
Yeah, she is a paid staffer of National. She handles. I think she's the main donation person for the National Party. And I'd never seen her around ever. I mean, Jason, you've been around longer. Have you ever seen her around?
Never.
Um,
Nope.
I mean, she's basically party establishment. And she was anointed to the state committee. Okay, that be it as it may. She lives close by, and she came to for one of our Middlesex meetings, and we let her. I was tried to have an open mind as to what type of person she would be. She came to our meeting, and I mean, let's just say she dominated the conversation and didn't really culturally fit in with us. Her priorities as to what were pressing issues to libertarians were not in alignment with what we think are pressing issues. Like we had a new member that also showed up to that same meeting who was like really tired of the fact that the state party had not been saying anything on COVID, and we're like, yeah, we're right here with you. That's why we're meeting here right now. In person. We are totally against the COVID regime. Would you can complain here to somebody who's sitting on the state committee, and unfortunately, she didn't take that to heart. She didn't really take that to the state committee to defend us, and I'm a little disappointed there. But yeah, I don't. This claim that because new members are signed on to this petition that it's invalid. I mean, Tara hasn't been around either. I don't. I'd venture to say Tara joined the state party not even a couple months ago. She hasn't been involved. She was just kind of anointed by some of the party establishment to cement their votes in the party. And also, in addition to that, I keep forgetting things because there's so much. Another state party moved out of state, or sorry, state committee member moved out of state, and that's explicitly against our constitution. And they voted internally to change that, but since only the membership can change the constitution, they weren't able to do that. So without Tara's vote and without the state committee member who moved out, his vote, the motions that they put forward wouldn't have passed anyways. Both Charlie and Janelle would have been able to, with their no votes, nuke any bylaws changes. So it's just a whole collection of issues we've been dealing with here. It's not just any single thing. So Tara DeSisto was a big thing. Tried to give her, tried to keep an open mind with her, but that didn't work out. And in December, moving along the story, in December, there was the vote for this bylaw change was to go forward. And we told as many people as we could. I think Charlie told many people in his affiliate as well, Tom and his affiliate, and we got a bunch of people to show up, like 25 some odd members, right? So that's like a full quarter of the membership right there in a state committee meeting. It's probably the most well-attended state committee meeting in Massachusetts history. And we were all commenting. All the members were like, "This is a bad idea. This code of conduct is a bad idea. This pertains." My main issue with it is it pertains to the conscience of members, right? And 7 people on the state committee shouldn't be able to change the bylaws like that. I mean, they technically can, but it's wrong for them to do so. And I made that point, and I was ignored, right? All of the members made similar arguments as to why it was a bad idea and why it should be put off to a full vote of the membership at a regular convention, and they ignored that. And so we very directly said, or rather Dan here specifically stated, I think we have the sentiment here that we'll call a special convention in order to shut this down. We told them straight up, it's not anything secret.
So let's take one step back, because I've seen a few people ask in the chat, why was there a petition? So like you said, people came into the meeting to speak against the code of conduct. They made their arguments. Why don't you give us some of those arguments, some of the details? What was so bad about a code of conduct? I mean, we should just want to treat each other respectfully and with love, man, right? That's what it's about, right?
Well, as you and I know, Michael, from our discussions, the way you actually do that is with building, a good culture. How they wanted to do it was with Stalin-esque decrees, which Stalin used to take the undesirables out in the back shed and shoot them in the back of the head. These are not honest documents. They're so vague and yet so specific that they can be applied to anybody, right? They contain provisions like you can't. I'm forgetting the actual specific wording. I should look this up, but it's more or less you can't be mean to other members of the association. or that's a big no-no, right? Some very vague language as to how members should behave. The original version of the document also included provisions that restricted how members' opinions on candidates, endorsed candidates from the party. So if you didn't like, say, Vermin Supreme running for some position in Massachusetts, if you spoke out against Vermin Supreme, they could kick you out of the party for that. Luckily, that was so controversial, it didn't even make it into the original code of conduct. Also get back to the fact that they want to change it to the original wording again.
Mhm.
They were emboldened by their win, and they wanted to change it to the original wording, which is even more horrendous than what we were dealing with.
So basically, to answer the question of why was there a petition, why not wait until the regular convention, you guys, given the fact that there was already one person kicked out for retweeting Jeremy Kaufman, there was almost a second person who was kicked out for a tweet. And then this document comes that basically says, look, we can kick you out if you don't agree with leadership or if you are critical of leadership. You guys... Basically, was it that you felt you had to do something, or else you might not even make it to convention? And once you answer that, I want to kick it to Charlie and ask, what were the internal conversations like? How are they painting over this internally? But we'll start with the justification there.
Yeah, on our end, it was all the things that we've spoken about. That the state committee was running on. Sorry, I'll just say something real quick. Running on fumes, and really didn't represent the member, right? One member shouldn't have been voting, another member had been anointed, and another member had resigned, right? So that, practically speaking, they really didn't terribly represent the membership as it currently stood in December. And on top of that, there was a practical worry that, hey, the prohibited behavior, or the expected behavior that, that we can't, I don't know, sorry, I'm trying to look for specific provisions. There's something I'm looking at the wording right now that
It's
instigating
any behavior, race, color, race, religion, any any sort of the wokest of the woke. It was like a woke pledge, a loyalty pledge that you cannot. There was required behavior and prohibited behavior, and it came right out of the worst human resources video that you've ever had to sit through.
Yeah, exactly. I'm looking at it right now. Any behaviors that target in an adverse manner, blah 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 blah, like what Jason just said. So
totally
we're really worried.
Yeah.
It's totally subjective is the issue. It's this can be pointed at literally anybody. We could claim, there are several things floating out on the internet of improprietous behavior by Ashley Shade. So this would actually apply to Ashley Shade, but because Ashley Shade formerly controlled the strings of the organization, of course this wouldn't apply to her. So this is entirely a Stalin-esque document, not anything that should be anywhere near a libertarian organization. And practically speaking, it would have really jeopardized all the new growth that we had, and we felt like we had to act on it immediately.
And we were responsible for much of the new growth. I mean, 90%, maybe some high percentage like that, were joining because of our efforts.
So Charlie, what was the internal conversation like on the board for around this code of conduct? How are they paying?
Essentially, from what I could see, everybody but Janelle and I was in favor of it, to one degree or another. And I looked at it and said, this is ripe for abuse, no matter who's in charge. Whether it's people I agree with or disagree with, this is setting up to give somebody a barbed wire wrapped baseball bat and golf cleats. And if someone is particularly unable to control themselves with whatever, this could be disastrous for anybody. I was opposed to it simply for that reason. This is ripe for abuse. I do not think this has any reason to be near a political organization, because we are going to have somebody go Trotsky on somebody. And Janelle and I both, advocated as much as we could. We really don't want to do this. This is going to turn into a mess. It got to the point where John Dixon, who was a Worcester County LP member and who was also ousted because he signed the special convention petition, actually wrote a very good counter to the document that Jeremy created, and a lot of people actually liked it. And it was still voted down, and
Wasn't.
they went with Jeremy's.
They didn't even
And
recognize it.
oh, that's right. Yes, I remember. It was somebody. Maybe it was it Tom that had written up something else as well?
Tom and the
Believe
members
so.
of his Tom on.
Yep, that's right. Yes, that's right. I remember now. And and it was John's wasn't even recognized because John's was actually reasonable, and
To clarify,
Tom's
that
wasn't
only
recognized
applied to-
because it was restricted to the state committee.
Yeah.
And I had thank you, Brody, for reminding me of that. And then I don't recall the details on Tom's, but I do remember he wrote one that was also good, but they took the worst possible option. And to me, the best option really would have been expect basic decency and courtesy from people, and if they're not doing that, then you take them aside and we need to talk.
So
And-
Thomas actually wrote a resolution against this and a well-reasoned, articulate statement as to why this shouldn't be put in place. That's what
Yeah.
we're referring to, and it was promptly ignored. He had all. It was
Yes.
signed by
Yep.
the 3 officers of the South Shore Libertarian Party affiliate.
Yep.
Promptly
And I remember that, and I remember that caused quite a bit of ire from several members of the committee. So whatever it was, that whole code of conduct thing was an embarrassment. And it really started putting a lot of people over the edge. Janelle and I had a couple of very long conversations that centered, do we even want to stay on the committee anymore? Because this is becoming absolutely crazy.
So, Charlie, two quick questions. One, just for the record, are you a Mises? Do you consider yourself to be a Mises Caucus member? And just so we understand where you're coming from as you
Nope.
navigate this. Okay.
Nope, I am not Mises. I am not Cathedral. I do not belong to the only caucus I belong to, because everyone does, is the Waffle House Caucus.
Amen, brother.
And I have and I am a founding member of a nonpartisan lowercase L caucus that I would prefer not to mention at this point. But we are open to capital L libertarians. We are also open to libertarian-leaning Republicans, Democrats, and Independent that meet its other membership requirements. And I'll just leave it at that.
And then my second question. Oh, sorry.
But no, I have looked at the major caucuses, and what I see from many of them, to me, and please don't take this the wrong way, I see a group of wrecking balls swinging at each other. And that's why I've decided not to get involved with any of them, because I'm afraid of what we are now seeing with these clashes becoming more and more prevalent. And I'm afraid we are going to do horrendous internal damage to ourselves as a party and also as people.
And then, Charlie, my second question.
Your second question, please.
Yeah, so my question was there any internal conversation from any of the other members of the board that would indicate, and like specifically around the code of conduct, that would indicate animus, like towards certain members, that this was being aimed towards certain members, that there was any kind of, let's say, partisan or political purpose to any of this?
I'm not quite sure how to answer that, although I could see that a large number of the board did want to take aim to people who come from more of the center-right side of the libertarian movement. And I do not, and so I would assume that would include mostly the Mises folks. That would have probably included quite a few of the Pragmatic Caucus members. That would have included a lot of other people. And I'm thinking, and the more I look at this, I say, why are we doing this to ourselves? This is absolutely insane.
Yeah. Yeah, so like it's almost like they want to preserve cultural hegemony in the party more than they want to expand liberty.
Yeah. If I may add one other thing that's a little bit off of some of the topics that we've been discussing, but you might find of interest. I don't, or not, I'm not sure, but I'll throw it out anyway, and you can take with it what you will. As it turns out, immediately after the closed meeting that was not closed properly because it didn't start as an open meeting when this rather weak attempt at reenacting the Great Leap Forward occurred this past Monday. Ashley immediately resigned as chairwoman of the Massachusetts Libertarian Association. Because of state election laws, we're in association because we're not a major party, and we aren't that until we get 3% in a statewide election again, or for a state office like a state rep. So then we become the Massachusetts Libertarian Party, but the association is the continuing entity in between those times. But to make what was very interesting, it turns out that Ashley probably should not have been chairwoman in the first place due to something that I was not aware of until this past couple of evenings. Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 55, and that's Chapter 55, Section 5, Adam, prevents a candidate or holder for a public office in Massachusetts from being head of a PAC or a political party. And where Ashley was already a declared candidate for city council in North Adams, which is in the far northwestern corner of the state, and ended up winning her election, which we were all legitimately, we were very happy to see that happen. She probably should not have been chairwoman in the first place. And Janelle is a paralegal by employment. I do have a certificate as a paralegal, although I've used it more in some of the other work I've done in real estate and a couple of other things, not so much working for attorneys. And her boss went through that section of law and agreed that she should not have been running the show. So it now calls into question all of this heartache and misery that we've had for the last year, if it's going to end up having to be voided or not. And that's a question that, whether or not anybody likes it, may have to be settled by the elections board or the attorney general's office. So this throws yet another wrench into the works.
Sounds pretty spicy. So she was in violation of state law, basically, by being chair while running the office, let alone holding the office.
To the best of our reading, that appears to be the case. Yes, I am not a lawyer. I do not play one on TV. But from what we can see, that may have in fact been the case. That is up to an attorney and possibly a court to resolve, but that is what we can determine to the best of our ability at this time, at least as far as Janelle and I have been able to determine, and several people who are also fairly well versed in election law who we have talked with tend to agree.
Okay. All right. So I kind of want to start bringing it home here. So, the bylaws changes for the code of conduct happens. I also want to reiterate that something that Brody had said is that in that meeting, the members that were there said, if you pass this, we are going to execute the part of the bylaws that allows us to petition for a special convention. And I think that's really
Yes,
key
they
because
did, and
they knew what they were getting.
I remember that very well.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's the Chad. That's the Chad down there.
And I think that's important because they knew what they were getting at that point. They knew that the membership was against this. They knew that this was coming. And then you guys turned around and you got so the bylaws state you need what 10% petition signatures from 10% of the membership. And you guys went around and in 1 week's time drove around Boston and got like 25%, right?
Massachusetts.
It took about
Yep.
5 days, and we coordinated efforts from the Pioneer Valley, which is about 2 hours or so west of Boston, all the way across the state. We got 47 signatures. I think it took about 5 days. We started on Tuesday, had the signatures all in Brody's hand on Saturday or Sunday morning, Saturday.
I think it was Saturday or Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, and in that meeting, there wasn't a single member, regardless of caucus affiliation, because there were plenty of people there that weren't affiliated with the Mises Caucus as well. But there wasn't a single positive comment made from any member. Everyone tried, and this was a multiple hour-long meeting. People tried and rallied against this. I would say at least 10 to 15 people all spoke out in opposition of them putting this through. Me being the last person to go and threatening with the the special convention as well, the petition for that. And we went completely unheard. They ignored us like nothing had ever even been said.
Yeah, and in fact, another thing that we haven't mentioned, again, going back to this imposing the culture on us or making Mises Caucus specifically feel like we can't be open about our caucus affiliations. Ashley Shade, normally by tradition, Massachusetts, Libertarian Association of Massachusetts has open state committee meetings that are open to the members. And generally members can comment, can type in the chat. It's been this way for a long time. Well, Ashley Shade, when things started getting heated up around Mosh's expulsion, she shut off the chats, claiming they were out of order. Well, if you can't bring up a point, it can't be out of order, correct? And you had to explicitly ask permission to speak. And if you did speak and she didn't like what you were saying, she would cut you off mid-sentence. She would mute you. She did this to several members as they were explaining their points. So it's things like this that we're like, this is just unacceptable behavior from leadership. And is just another reason to elect more honest and principled leadership.
So let's get into, you guys got the petition, you were basically ignored after that, and then what happened with the meeting where everybody who signed it was removed from the party? I'm seeing stuff out there that this was a secret meeting. It was an executive session. They voted in executive session. What? I don't know if any of that's true, but what happened there, and what comes next after this?
Yeah, so I believe we submitted the petition either December 18th or 19th formally. I can't remember specifically what day. And Ashley, a couple days after that, told us in some long post that she hears our concerns and she'll reply after the holidays. And we were all okay, whatever. It is the holidays. We'll give her that. But it wasn't until we heard nothing after the holidays. No word from the state committee.
Meanwhile, on Facebook, Tara DeSisto was posting all sorts of stuff, specifically calling the petition itself an act of aggression.
Oh,
so
yeah.
this is actually important because this actually
Yes.
People don't realize there's a connection between what happened there with you guys and the meeting that's coming up to censor Joshua Smith. It's related to Tara's behind the scenes activity in this whole thing because she was trying to go around and tell members that they're not members, and this is a staffer injecting herself into these kinds of matters. And that's the reason why Joshua, you can say what you want about whether he should have done it on Christmas Eve or not, but the substance of it is, this is wholly inappropriate behavior for a paid staffer to be going around telling members who are on the rolls, definitely members, I'm kind of running away with it. So check me if I'm wrong here, guys. Going around telling members that they're not members when they're on the rolls, telling people who signed the petition they're not members when they are members. And then they just hit you with this. Now, was it actually a vote in secret? Was it in executive session? How did that all go down?
Yeah, so the state committee meetings are regularly scheduled for the second Sunday of every month, 8:30, or they have been since this committee was formed. And so we were all planning on having a meeting at 8:30 last Monday. The meetings on the state website have said forever that they're open to the members. And then all of a sudden, at 7:30, about an hour before the meeting was supposed to start, one of the state committee members, who we actually rarely hear from, posts in the Slack saying, "Oh, this is going to be an executive session." And we're like, "Wait a second, what?" And so we go and turn up Francis and Francis, which is the parliamentary rules for the Libertarian Association of Massachusetts. And we're like, "Wait a second, Francis and Francis has no conception of executive session." So we have to fall back on general parliamentary rule, which is you have the open meeting first, and then you motion for executive session. But they wanted to start the meeting in executive session, correct? Right? Charlie, I believe that's correct. What
Yes,
happened?
that's
Um,
accurate.
and so they started the meeting in the executive session, and
From what I was able to determine, that was correct, yes. At least for the
okay,
couple of minutes I was in, my Zoom decided to stop working and I couldn't even get back in and I wasn't even around for my own execution.
yeah. And then
Now,
Ashley Shade,
I
once
also
this is pointed out, Ashley Shade begins to say, "Oh, it's these are state committee meetings. They're not open to members," which is blatantly false by precedent. They have been open to members by precedent for a long time, and to change it not only an hour before the meeting is supposed to start is just, I mean, not only do I think it's wrong, I think it's borderline fraud, but it's also just like a bad way to run an organization. You don't tell all your members like an hour before a meeting that they expect to happen isn't going to happen or isn't going to happen for them. I think that's just wrong. Um, so yeah, they start this meeting in so-called executive session. Um, Janelle's not here, who was actually in the meeting and was able to participate. Charlie had connection issues, as he said. But general summary of the meeting is that they basically had this discussion about how this petition was aggression, how this petition was led by, Ashley actually emailed this out to all of us. They called the affiliates the Mises affiliates. They're affiliates, right? Even though these are duly formed affiliates of, we all came and voted on our bylaws. We have the Libertarian Party of Middlesex. Not everybody is a Mises member. They all voted on the bylaws. They're members just as much as anybody else. And we were affiliated by the state party, or are affiliated by the state party. They claim that, that this affiliate-led and, Mises Caucus-led, so allegedly, petition was an aggression against the state committee. And therefore, it's justified to kick the 47 signatories out, for one of whom they do strongly contest was not a member at the time of the signature. And they did this by, I believe it's 2/3 secret vote. So that part is in our bylaws. It does not state you can kick out people in blanc, though, or like
Yeah, it doesn't state that you can kick out more than one member at a time.
Yeah, it just says a person.
Right.
So it was one motion to kick out 47 people.
Couple other little details are two state board members were involved, were people that were kicked out. And there was a whole bunch of people, I don't know the exact number, but there was a whole bunch of people that were kicked out that had nothing to do with the Mises Caucus. Some of these are
Right.
longtime members. I think that applies to Charlie here. And my understanding is that there was more people who were kicked out as a result of this than attended the last state convention, period.
Oh yeah, there were only
And over
30,
a third.
there's only 36 voting members at the last convention. There were 47 who signed this petition. Over a quarter of them were not Mises. I've been attending Worcester's meeting to get, because Worcester is one of the most active affiliates. The only people meeting, the only libertarians meeting outside of South Shore and Pioneer Valley, but you guys are far away, and Middlesex, of course. And I'd given my case as to why I think we should do a special petition to the, I think, November Worcester meeting. And basically what I heard there is like, okay, let's just wait a month. And so I waited a month. I was like, okay, guys, I will wait a month, and then will you sign this after a month if my predictions come true? And a lot of them are like, yeah, I think there is a real issue here, and if you wait a month, we'll sign it. And they held true to their word in December. They signed it because they agreed with us and had their own reasonings as well. And they were kicked out too. They were lumped in with us, which I think is unfair. Like I don't, whatever
All
you think
things
of Mises
unfair.
Caucus, it's
Yeah,
unfair.
absolutely.
It's unfair for them to be lumped in with us, right? Like, okay, they had their own
I feel
reasons.
that way
Don't
too.
I kind of feel bad that they had to be lumped in with us to some extent. Because they really weren't. They weren't associated with us. As I went in as an individual, as a libertarian, saying, I think this is the reason why we should do this. And they said, yeah, we agree with you, but let's wait a month. And I was like, okay, let's wait a month. They decided to kick us all out anyways.
So another interesting thing that was going on around all of this is you were telling me about how there are people who were not Mises who had left the party because of the kind of people because of the regime essentially, and who are coming back to aid you guys in fixing this and coming back. Radicals who had left the party or at least ceased being active in the party coming back. Like, what are the silver linings of this, and what are where do we go from here?
Yeah, so immediately, we are still looking at carrying forward with our special convention because the Worcester Libertarian Party, I almost speak, Charlie's part of that party, but I just say real quickly, they officially resolved not to recognize the meeting on Monday, and they have set up a committee for carrying forward with the special convention because the state committee is not fulfilling their duties. And yes, so on your original question, there are some people who have basically, kind of not been involved in the past couple of years, but were heavily involved in years previous, that have, left for various reasons, either to burn out or, life has taken them different directions, but have gotten more involved recently because of recent actions by the state committee, which is encouraging because there is a history in Massachusetts of good libertarians being burnt out by the establishment because there is a solid core of establishment libertarians here that is really hard to get past because they are very dedicated. They have a lot of resources, and they've just been here for a really long time. But the encouraging thing is we got good libertarians like Charlie, Janelle, and the other ones that are starting to come back. And we really have the strength in numbers now to kind of carry forward, right, and to just kind of blow past this block in the party that's been here for 15 plus years. Because if you read the Wikipedia page for the LP Mass, we have a pretty noble history around in the early 2000s of some very strong candidates, very principled candidates that did very well in Massachusetts. And it'd be great to return to those glory days, but we can't do that while we're worrying about kicking out a quarter of our membership over hurt feelings.
Right. These guys want to play word police and instead of fighting against the state, and that's what I came here to do. And it's very discouraging that was my introduction here to see what the current state committee is like. Ever since I've been here, all they're worried about is playing word police and censoring people, and they haven't done a lick of work against the state. We're here to change that.
All right, so with that, I think I'm going to start to wrap up here, unless you guys have any final bows that you want to put on this, because I want to speak to some silver linings that I see, but I'll give you guys all the opportunity to kind of close out.
Well, maybe a suggestion.
I'm sorry.
I was just going to suggest, actually, Karen Ann Harless has done many live shows about all that's been going on over the past week, and in her mind, and I agree with her, some suggestions that people can write to the LNC or their regional reps and ask that they have a meeting about this on the 23rd. The LNC does. They can pass a resolution condemning this action. They could pass a resolution that the next LNC look into this matter, and they could also censure the former chair, if not the entire board. And none of these things would be interfering with the autonomy of affiliates.
Yeah, and I would also argue that they already set precedent with what happened with Delaware, where she's obviously way more of a parliamentarian than me. So, but I don't see why they can't just say, we'll recognize the results of the legitimate special convention,
right,
and go from there. But silver linings that I see, guys, is and Charlie, I know you had a comment. The silver linings that I see is, well, one, more, because this is not happening in a vacuum, right? Like you got the New Hampshire theft, you got the Delaware theft, You got, the Pennsylvania Party is using membership money to send 1,700 libertarians attack pieces on me personally by name, and the Mises Caucus and my buddy Mark Pizzacco by name. You've got suddenly changing bylaws in New Mexico to extend the deadlines to recruit people. You got secret conventions with no announcement in Wyoming. You've got Vermont, where they turned off the button to join the party, and Archie has refused to have a reorganization meeting, which is I don't want to speak out of turn here, but my understanding is it's a violation of state law. So you got all of this animalistic behavior happening in these different states where the establishment stands to lose. But the good stuff that's coming out of that is that, well, one, these people are revealing themselves and revealing their character. And I don't think that this was really known by the party at large until we came in here and we instituted some competition, some vision, and some drive to kind of push these people. And I think that is now causing them to show their true reptilian form. And that is like a real shock to everybody else in the party of what kind of people these really are. And there's this phenomenon that's going around the party where, like, people who were friends with these now animals had no idea they were like that. And just being fair to us, as Charlie is finding out, you don't even have to be one of us. Just being fair to us is enough to get you shunned. It's enough to make you a Mises shill. And helping us is an act of aggression, and winning elections is an act of aggression, and all of this nonsense. So, like, this behavior, this character is being revealed, and it's pushing the middle towards us more and more. So that's the good thing. Charlie, I know you had a comment.
Well, yeah, okay, good. Now I'm unmuted. The main thing I would like to say is that I'm hoping that with the fallout from all of this nationally, is we open a dialogue. We have to sit down and talk with each other, not at each other and not past each other. The only way we are going to grow as a party and as a movement is to actually start doing that. And if you pay any attention to the news at all, America as a whole is ripe for it. They have seen that the duopoly has failed them completely. The last couple of weeks, I think, should be, especially if you've seen any of the economic numbers and the coronavirus and all this other stuff, should be an indicator that, oh, gee, you're not doing your job. Maybe we should try someone else. Let's give them a viable option. So that's the first thing I'd like to say. And the other is that Brody, Dan, and Jason have been great to work with. I wouldn't care if they were Mises, Cathedral, non-affiliated, whatever. These are three people I am not only happy to call colleagues, I believe I can call friends, and not be stretching it too much. And they've been great. And guys, thank you. I appreciate your effort on behalf of myself anyway for trying to make sure that things are working the way they should be. And I appreciate that very much.
Big time, man. You've been
We
a
definitely
huge help to me.
appreciate. Yeah, we definitely appreciate your efforts on the state committee, and as a member of Worcester County, as a libertarian in Massachusetts. I got to say, just a kind of a funny point. If we ever have to redraw the map of Massachusetts in our anarcho utopia, it's going to be Charlie Larkin, because he knows Massachusetts better than anybody I have ever talked to. He can talk to you about every single little town in Massachusetts, how it's related to each other. So, if you want to know about Massachusetts, talk to Charlie Larkin. Yeah, so I just want to say that, I am very hopeful for the future. I think even though this is a real struggle right now, we are seeing kind of a final lizard form of everybody of this. They've had this little club for so many years, and all of a sudden these, new dumb Zoomers come in and kind of wreck their little toy, right? We're not coming in here and, doing things dishonestly, of course, but we are coming in here and saying, no, we don't like the way you do that, guys. You should do it this way. And I have a whole bunch of people that agree with me that are very strong libertarians, and we're going to change how this is done so that we can, have a smidgen of a chance to bring liberty to Massachusetts in our lifetime, right? So I'm very hopeful. I've been very encouraged by the people I've met both in the caucus, outside of the caucus. Honest libertarians is what we really need. And I'm excited for where we can bring things. We can bring back the glory days of the early 2000s Massachusetts Libertarian Party. There's weak points in the establishment here, the Democratic Model Party that's here in Massachusetts that we can hit really hard. And this is things like drug reform. This is things like police reform. This is wholesale undoing the police state. This is things like criminal justice and such like. There are a lot of issues, or war is a very big one here as well. There are things that we can hit the establishment at where they're weak. And, the GOP doesn't exist here. Mass GOP is even in a messier state than the LP here is. So we have a huge, huge opening here in Massachusetts. And I think if we play our cards right, we can really, really turn this into something. We just need to, get over this hump and bring it forward.
Absolutely. We're a state of 6 million people here. We're a little over 200 on the membership. I mean, there's nowhere to go but up. And there is a huge crowd of people that are hungry for something different than the establishment two parties. And we absolutely have a real opportunity here. And I agree with you that I feel very hopeful for the future. Once we can get in here and start making changes and making the LP a force in Massachusetts again, or for the first time, really.
Yeah, and I guess I'll close out by saying, Charlie, I really appreciate the sentiments that you kind of gave a minute ago, and say that is the entire point of the Take Human Action mantra. It's to come in here, it's to do the work, it's to push the vision forward, push the message forward, and do action in the real world at that local level, especially where we can decentralize things, we can nullify things, we can change things, we can insert ourselves into the culture, and actually make a real change, and work with anybody who will work with us. I've been saying it for a long time that the number one problem in the Libertarian Party is not actually principle. There is principal problems, and you see that constantly in the messaging. But Ashley's behavior would not be remedied if she was like a super Ron Paul fan and a cat. The problem is character. That's the real problem, and people of very low character have been allowed to become leaders in a lot of areas, and I think that's what we're finding out more and more. So yes, we need to raise the character. Yes, obviously we need to increase the boldness and the ferocity of the messaging, but really we need to raise the character of the party so that we're worthy of trust, we're worthy of power, we're worthy of people listening to us. And without that, I don't think we're going to get much else. So that's a big part of the mission here. So, I really thank you guys for your time tonight, and keep up the fight. We got your backs. And, with that, I'm going to do more shameless plugs. I'm sorry, I got to do it. So MisesMerch.com, like I said, this stuff that's going on in Massachusetts, it's not happening in a vacuum. It's happened to the poor folks in Delaware. It's happened to New Hampshire. They were able to rebuff that, and do a legendary NOTA campaign. There's stuff going on in Wyoming. There's stuff going on in Vermont. So what I need you guys listening to do, number one, is go to lpmisescaucus.com if you have not already signed up to the email, and sign up to the email, because you're not just signing up to the email. You are giving an alert to the organizers in your state that you are ready to take human action with us, and we want to get you in. We're in the thick of convention season right now, and we're ready to ride into Reno hardcore and make the changes. So please help us with that. And then big shout out to Dennis Pratt. We don't have super chat, but we got super supporters. So he sent $1,000 in. Thank you very much, Dennis Pratt. Check out the Free State Project. If you are in a vaccine mandate hellhole, especially, maybe consider moving out to New Hampshire and seek refuge with your family. So thank you guys very much tonight. lpmisescaucus.com, misesmerch.com, and I'll see you in the trenches.
Thank you for
right.
giving us a voice, Michael. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
You, man.
Thanks, Michael.
Good night.
Take care, everybody.
Oh, he just